Hi everybody, Gisele Grenier here from artplace.ca. Today we've got a really interesting workshop to do, demo. I'm on my series of demonstrating different types of crackle products from DecoArt, and this one's really exciting. It's the texture crackle, and it's the pre-colored, pre-tinted stuff. Now I do have another separate video because that one's going to take much longer to do. There's a texture crackle product also, same line, okay, but this one is paintable, it's just white. That's a separate video because that one is actually going to take a little bit of time to do, same as this one. I apologize for the air conditioner running in the background. It's mega hot in here, so we'll just muddle on through. For this particular demonstration, I've been with the book of backgrounds. What I've been doing is kind of only demonstrating the product, not combining techniques. But for this particular demonstration, I am going to combine a technique in here with stenciling, and there's a reason why. This really shows how great the product is. There is a little bit of prep work that needs to be done, and I also want to do a little bit of an experiment with some of these. So I may end up doing 3 spreads. I'm not sure if I'm going to have enough room, but we'll see what happens. The prep work on this, oh, first of all, let's go back a little bit. If you're working on thin paper, please prime your pages with 1 to 2 coats of acrylic gesso. Just use a foam brush and just put it on. Doesn't need to be fancy schmancy. This will make your pages not only a little bit stiffer, but it will receive paint a lot better. I'm working in, I've disassembled my Strathmore Visual Journal. That way I can work on individual pages. Because there's so much drying time, this allows me just to continue filming different segments of video, and when the pieces are dry, then I can just continue refilming. We will not need any brushes. Oh yes, we will. I lied. Silly, silly me, I lied. Oh, all my brushes are drying. Well, okay. Okay, I just threw myself for a loop here. I just threw myself for a silly loop. So let's just grab a bunch of brushes here. Actually, let's just do this. I'm sorry, I totally messed myself up. I totally messed myself up. Let's just get a brush. Now, when we put the crackle product on, think of it like plaster. It is so wonderful to work with this stuff. You spray it on with a palette knife, but you can do so much more with it. What I do want to experiment with, I do want to take a section of the page and I want to prime it with a little bit of acrylic paint, and I want to see what happens when you put the product over that. I do want to see what happens. Drop the bottle on the floor, Gisele. So the first thing that it has to go onto a prime surface. That's a no-brainer. So on the paper, the paper that I'm putting the paint on, I can just go paint and then the product. If you're going just straight product to the medium, then you need to actually put a multi-surface sealer on there. And let's just do that together. All the supplies I'm going to be using will be listed at the end of the video, so you're not going to miss out on anything. It's always best just to really seal your pieces well. This one I'm not going to seal because let's see if it looks any different. And I know it's not really going to, because this is a paper product, so it's going to be, or the mixed media paper, so it'll be fine. But what I am going to do as a precaution, I am going to seal. I'll just grab a different sheet. I'm going to seal 3 pages, or have 3 pages, because I don't think I'm going to have enough room just with 2. And I already have an idea when it comes to the point where our book of backgrounds is done, when we start working on techniques where we're combining things like collaging and using this product, and collaging and painting, that I do have an idea of what I want to do with this already. I mean, I had that idea as soon as I picked up the bottles. This will also make your pages really nice and sturdy. Okay, when you put that on, just kind of tilt it a little bit to make sure you've covered everything. And I put your mouth out, of course, so I'll just scoop it back in the bottle. And the brush I did not dip in water first because I didn't want to dilute the sealer at all. But as soon as I'm done with the brush, I'll make sure that it goes right into water as soon as I'm finished. Okay, nice, nice, nice. There are a bunch of other crackle products out there. Experiment. I'm a huge, I'm a decor art helping artist, so I concentrate all my knowledge on their part, their education and learning how their products work, and I like breaking the rules and combine things to see how they work. But I change up my focus if I'm doing a professional piece. You know, if I'm teaching a class, paint, you know, doing a pet portrait or something, teaching a class, and I will tell people, no, you must do it this way. Because you don't, mixed media and journaling and that, you can have fun to experiment. There we go. Okay, brush in water. So I'm going to use 3 pages. Okay, so for what I need to do, I'm just going to let this dry for a sec. Then I'm going to put the piece aside, then we'll get started. So we're all set here. I have to make sure I got working on the right piece. So I'm going to put the ones that are sealed with the multi-surface sealer aside. So I've got this one here. Now with this one here, I want to experiment with some paint. So I'm just going to kind of lay some color down. And just banana cream. And there's going to be really no rhyme or reason to this. It's just an experiment that I want to try. I'm putting on fairly dry. There's actually, I just dipped the water into the brush. Ugh. I dipped the brush in just a little bit of water just to dampen it. And then I'm just kind of spreading the paint out as far as it'll go. So I can always overlap the colors. This ensures that it'll dry really fast and I have good coverage. This brush is way too small for this. I think I'm going to switch to my fan. Mind you, it does teach me patience. And then to minimize the mud, and oops, sorry, I should have had this prepared. Okay, let me just pour the plastic cover still on the brush or the bottle. Okay, just a little bit of that one. I just have to. I need a knife for that. I'm gonna take my fan brush. And this is spiced pumpkin. I just want to. Basically, what I'm doing the experiments, I want to see how much detail is picked up with the crackle medium, the crackle paint. Okay, so that'll give us some good contrast there. That brush I'm going to rinse. Now I'm going to go to 2 different greens. Oh, I didn't. You know what? I apologize for not being prepared. I should have had these. I should have checked this because I just pulled the bottles off the shelf. Sorry. Sorry. I'm going to rinse my brush because orange and greens are sort of complementary colors, sort of, depending on the green. So I don't want mud, so I'm just gonna make sure I get all the orange out of my brush. But yellow and green are nice because you need yellow to make green. Okay, and then I'll just go right into my green mist. That one I know I'm fine. I can go right with my dirty brush. Just kind of go in there. Oh, you know what? No, I want to leave that blank. Sorry. So primed with paint and then an unpainted surface. Pure paper. I want to see what happens. Okay. Alright, so I'm going to put that aside. Okay, so that's just banana cream, spiced pumpkin, Irish moss, and green mist. That's just the Americana paint. I'm going to put that aside to dry. Dry where? I've run out of room. Everything's drying in here. Okay, now this is actually, you can see the multi-surface sealer on there. So with this one, I'm going to start. It doesn't really matter how I put this on. I'm making more color swatches, and then I'm going to use the texture tools and stuff, then some stenciling, just to kind of give you some idea of what you can do. So these are texture tools that you can get from DecoArt, and it's a really, really thick, almost like drywall mud. Big cracks, big layer. Thin cracks, a thin layer. So let's just do that. And I'm not going to go to the very edge because I want to be able to pick up the paper. And make sure you clean your tools after every use because you don't want it to dry on that. So that was Deep Tuscan Red. And we'll go to the yellow. Oops. These I don't want to contaminate because these are fairly new. Okay, the first thing I'm noticing, these palette knives are a little bit too weak for this product. So we'll layer. Let's see what happens when we layer. You will not see any effects of this until it's dry. So let's see if we can do a little bit of color mixing here. Alright, just dipping in water and putting back into here. So right now it just looks like a palette knife painting. And we'll go to the next one. Oh, what's this one? This is Colorado. This one's much creamier. The more air that gets to it, the faster it's going to. So it's possible that the other ones is just the way that they were positioned are just drying. Yeah, this is really creamy. It just probably dried a little bit in the bottle. Okay. Now I would have to check with DecoArt, and I will do that. But if it tends to dry out like this, here I would think that you could just like really mix it and add a little bit of distilled water, not tap water, but distilled water. See, here's another one that's really. Oh, see here. Okay, proves my point. This is very dry up here, but I'm going down way into here. This is very creamy in here. So this is just dried a little bit. This is just dried. So myself, I'm just going to add a little bit of distilled water to the top, almost like creating a seal on it, like a water seal, so it'll always be damp at the top. This one will be a little bit harder to see, but yes, I can mix up the medium, and this is amazing texture, and I can't wait to see what it looks like when it dries. I've used the actual, like the modeling paste and all that stuff, but the texture crackle I've never used before. So I'm going to put this one here to contrast this one here. I want to make this one really thick. Let's see, this will take a bit to dry. Well, I think it's going to take a bit to dry. I don't know. Got the air conditioner on now, so I have no idea what's going to happen. Okay. And yeah, when you're cleaning your tools, don't do it over your painting. I do that because I'm silly. I'm not paying attention. And the last one, neutral. Yeah, this one, whoopsie. I'm going to do this one quite thick as well. Okay, so I'm going to do quite thick right over here. If you're doing this for journaling, for texture, then what you may want to do is, if you're doing it for a swap, be careful because you're going to be adding a cost, like your shipping rates are going to go higher if you're doing this as a journal page, because think of this like a stone product. It's very heavy and it's very thick. So just keep that in mind. I like this one. Let's see if we can, get a mix between the two. That's kind of cool. Let's see what happens. Alrighty. I'll cover that up. Okay, gonna put this aside. Aside to dry. I am now. I am literally now out of room. And if I put this on the floor, of course, it'll be when Mia decides, oh, I'm gonna come visit my mommy. Okay, just gonna clean this off a little bit. The Texture Fiero is what that's going to be another one that's coming up. Texture Fiero is what I love using for texture, but because I was doing a whole series on crackling, I thought, well, you know what, I might as well show this stuff. Now, let me think for a second, I want to, you know what, I think we're going to be okay. We didn't need to do an extra page. Let me think. You know what? Yeah. Okay. I'm going to just do the stenciling now. So I've got the 5" times New Roman numerals, and then I've got a gloss enamel stick-on stencil. These really you don't use for paper. You use them for glass, but I love the design. So I'm just going to lay that out like that, and we'll see what kind of texture we can get. So because I'm using a white background, let's use black. And I'm going to use the large knife with that. You have to be very careful with this. You actually should tape your stencil down. I can hear the tree cutter outside. They're finally cleaning up the trees I've been with that massive storm that we had that did all the damage. Finally. Okay, so I'm going to scrape that off, put it back in the container. The only stuff I wouldn't put back in the container is if it's dried on here. I got some on the paper. My palette knife is just a bit big. Okay, let's peel that off. Okay, so we'll take that. That's going to go in my bucket of water right away. And BB wipe. Because there's multi-surface sealer on here. Oh, except for here, because I must have. I don't know why that one won't come off. I must have not put the sealer on totally. Oh, that's bad. That's bad for not doing that properly. Okay, I'm going to use a smaller one now. And we'll do a number 3. Which other one was nice and soupy that moved really well? I don't want to use anything too light. Was it the orange? Yeah. Now this is directly on the paper with the multi-surface sealer on it. And we're just going to stencil that. This one I'm going to do nice and thick. But the minute you stencil it, you got to take your stencil off, because if you let it dry like this, when you lift it up, everything that's between the stencil and inside the stencil will have been sealed, and you'll make a mess. But yeah, if you can tape your stencil, that would be so much better. Nice and thick. Then I would just take this off, not on camera, but scrape this off, clean it, and then put it back in here. because I'm limited on time, that's just going to go in my water bucket. Oh, while we're here, let's just do the question mark. What was the yellow like? Was that? No, that was hard. That was hard. What about the red? I'm trying to remember. The red was hard as well. So I'm going to have to put water on those. I'll just do the question mark with I'm such an idiot sometimes. My brain is going one way, and my right brain is going one way, and my left brain is going another way. Do it with this one because I want to show something else. Mia came in the room. I hope she stays quiet. Okay, nice and thick in the bucket. Put this aside. Now we're going to grab this piece. And basically now we're going to repeat the same thing over again, what we did like this. But I'm going to make these ones much, much thinner. And I'm only going to use, let's see, what would be a good product to use for that? I'll use orange, like right over here. I'll do this. Let's make it thick, then thin, thick, then thin, thick, then thin. You'll be able to get a really good idea. Let's see what happens. This is an experiment. Okay, let's see what happens with that. What I want to do is I want to see between the thickness and the thinness if any of the paint actually shows through when the cracks start to develop. That's the only purpose for this experiment. Okay, so we've covered off just the basic application on a prime surface. Basic application, thick and thin layers over top unprimed paper and paper with painted with Americana paint. And then stenciled, thick stencils right on top of a sealed surface. Oh, that dried. There we go. That's the beauty when you use a sealer. Sometimes you can just get it right off of there. Okay, drying time, have no idea. Have no idea. It could take hours, it could take a day, so we'll have to see. While I'm here, let's take some of these texture tools and I'm just going to want to see what happens going through over the different colors. There we go. Just want to see what was going to happen with that. And then we'll just put that back here. Get a mixture of mud. The grunge look. Because what I want to do with this is that once that's crackled, I want to see what happens if I try painting over it to see how much coverage I can get on this. Okay, so basically we'll come back. This is the layer that's going to take the longest to dry. So we'll come back when this one's dry, and then we'll see what we have. And I'm also going to do a couple of other things on here just to see how far we can push this product. All right, so I'll see you in a bit. So these pieces are dry now, and it's been 24 hours. And what I want to do, I want to get a really nice close-up so you can see each of the pages, this one especially. So this ones are the ones that I did with the stencil. Let's get a really good close-up here. There's the cracking. Isn't that cool? That is so neat. That is so cool. Let me just move this away. There we go. Okay, so that's that one. Then we have this one. So this was very thin. Okay, so those are very, very light cracks. See? All these different textures. Look how thick that is. Oh, that's really thick. Look at that. That's neat. And then this one. So where it's very, very thinly put on, the cracks are minuscule. I don't know if the camera will get that close. Those are the cracks. They're absolutely minuscule. The camera didn't like being that close. So although, now this was an experiment to see how much of the cracks would show the paint underneath, and it doesn't show. It didn't show too much. It really didn't show anything. It's because it's tinted. But this experiment worked out really well. So now I know what I can do with this stuff. Out of all the pages for the backgrounds, like I like this one the best. And I love what I can do with this. What you can do with this now, if you were careful, is you can take an X-Acto knife and you can cut these pieces out. Okay, and then using decoupage medium, glue them onto another background, which is what we're going to do in part 2 of the series. This one here, though, what I would do, because it's so full, like if you have the patience to cut out each piece, that's fine. Myself, not so much. If I had a die that would cut a frame, let's say, I think the nestabilities are probably too delicate for stuff like this. You want probably get one of the Sizzix, the ones that are the big ones that could cut through like chipboard or something like that. Is a frame set to cut out and put a decorative border, and then you can take like a wash of paint and then just put a wash inside. Because this is a dark color, the wash of paint, don't use anything opaque, use a transparent pigment, and you can actually put a beautiful wash, which we're going to do in part 2 of this series. So there we go. So I hope that this particular project inspired you to what you can do with the Texture Crackle product. I absolutely love it. Very, and look how flexible this is. Listen. Listen. I'm bending. No cracking. How far could I bend this? Nope, it's flexible. Totally flexible. Now, if you use like a plaster of Paris, it would crack. But that's one of the reasons why, if you're going to do something really special, use an art product. This I probably wouldn't bend like that because it's such a small piece. But let's try. Oh, I heard one little crack. But wasn't what cracked? No? No? I don't know what cracked. Wonder if it was, I don't know, maybe that my hand got caught in the paper or something, I don't know, but no cracking. Oh well, I don't know what I heard. But anyway, so there you go. So I hope this inspired you, and you'll have to see now in part 2 of this series what I'm going to do with all these pieces to actually start decorating pages. So stay tuned for the next video where we continue on with our book of backgrounds. And until then, stay inspired.